Brian, welcome to the Pursuit of Happiness podcast. How you doing?
What's up, Mac? How are you, man?
Mac. So let's explain to our viewers. So as you just heard, Brian gave me my nickname, Mac. So Brian and myself go back. We're literally looking at about 3 decades now.
Yeah, fourth grade, right?
Third grade.
Third grade? Was it third? Jeez,
Third.
getting old.
Third grade. So when I say Brian's an old-time friend, I mean Brian is an old-time friend. There are very few people on this planet that know me as well as Brian does. So I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes. But first and foremost, how does it feel to be on the other side of the mic?
It's always fun to be on other podcasts. I enjoy the conversations. I just enjoy talking to folks. So especially talking to you, I'm so pumped for you. I'm so proud. I know we talked over a year ago about you starting your own podcast. And I know it took some coaxing, kind of probably mentally, but here you are. So man, I'm so proud of you to get this off the ground and excited to be on here.
I appreciate that. And I'm sure you know, and I'm sure you're aware of that. Obviously you were a big catalyst for me to get this going. Your podcast is literally titled Just Get Started. And there was a few roadblocks in my mind. I don't know if it was a little bit of confidence, if it was, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what subjects I want to cover. And literally I listened to your words. I just got started, just do it. And yeah. It's been awesome. And
well, I'm sure it was some, the fear, right? I know that was big for me. It took me almost 2 years to start mine because you're so worried about putting yourself out there in the world, even though we'll share stuff on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. But I think, this is a different medium. This is a different platform to share your voice. And, especially if you haven't had really a voice to put out there, literally a voice to put out there. So it's a unique venture. So.
And I'm excited about that because social media is just a picture, quick caption, or quick video. It's hard to kind of read between the lines, but with a conversation, we can get deeper and you get a feel for how someone's saying something or how it sounds. And I'm excited to come off like that because I feel like I have a lot to offer and I know you have a lot to offer. And sometimes just like a quick picture or a quick little caption just doesn't cover it. So I'm really interested to have a lot of meaningful conversations with you and people moving forward and getting interaction with everybody who hears it and sees it and let it go from there. So I feel like it's a way to get a lot deeper. So before we get too deep with this, I want to let you introduce yourself and how you got to be on this podcast, and yeah, just go for it.
Besides you asking me to be on here. Oh man, yeah, we can go as deep as you want. At this point right in my life, I'll just start where I'm at right now. I'm on this mission. I'm kind of calling it the trifecta of happiness, really helping, especially the Gen Zers, the younger generations of the world, find what they love, they can be great at, and where they want to make the most impact in the world. And if they can hit those, and it's a long journey, it doesn't happen overnight, but it's going to lead people to happiness. So that's kind of what my mission is right now with a lot of the different things I'm doing, whether it is the podcast or books I'm writing or some coaching stuff. So a variety of different avenues, but that's my core mission. And it took me a while to find that. But after, kind of a lot of mentorship and a lot of, self-reflection and those type of things, that's where I found, kind of my happiness. So.
And I love the word, you just said the word happiness twice. And, it was an easy pick to have you on this podcast. One, you're a great friend of mine. Two, like you have your own podcast, but it made a lot of sense to have you on this podcast. You just said the word happiness twice. And that's what my podcast is all about, is what are people doing to get to that point? The pursuit, how are they going about their happiness? What makes them happy? And, I feel like just getting started is a huge thing to people's happiness. And it's kind of a general statement, but getting over that hump, like that roadblock I was talking about, just pushing yourself to do something, a lot of times just getting started is the hardest point and everything else is easier. So how did you come about this podcast of just getting started? What made you get started with your podcast?
Well, I mean, I think if I can make one point before that, I think it sets the tone for the rest of our conversation. Just getting started, a lot of that comes down to your mindset. I think that's one of the biggest things is sometimes it is an action, right? And a physical action, but I think a lot more of it is how you think and where you're putting your energy in the world. And that's what I found was one of the most difficult things for me was to change of all, and listen, we grew up in the same area, but different families and what have you, but still the same area. And upstate New York, as much as I love the small town, there's a lot of negativity. You get the snow 6 months out of the year. So and growing up in that small town mentality, it took me a long time to change my mindset of the societal norms of like, nope, this is what you do to go to college, you get a job, you work your way up, you get married, have kids. It's kind of like that's what you do. And when you realize that that is untrue and most of it is falsified, the game changes. So, and specifically with the podcast for me, it was something, it actually goes back. Did you have Mr. Hines as a teacher?
I did not.
You didn't have Mr. Hines? Oh,
I did not.
So actually it goes back to Mr. Hines. He was the first one when I was in public speaking senior year. And he pulled me aside one day before I left class. And I had a decent relationship with him, but I wasn't an athlete really. And, so I know he was a wrestling coach and stuff. So I didn't really know him that well, but anyways, he pulled me aside one day and he said, Brian, you got great pitch and tone. You should be on radio someday. Now this is back in 2000 ish, right? 2000, I don't know if it was 2001 yet, but anyways, right around that turn of the century. And he said that to me and I never forgot it. And I had multiple folks over my adult life, like with every once in a while, I'd be like, man, you got a great voice or whatever it is. And so as I was kind of building this new body, if you will, this new mind in the last decade, I started to think, man, I'd love to do a podcast. And I had thought, so I was going to start it in 2015 and I didn't. And then I was going to start in 2016 and I didn't. And then finally in 2017, it finally was just come to a head, like over and over, it kept playing in my mind. And I was just like, I got to stop doing, this whole fear thing and stop worrying about what's going to happen if I put myself out there or share my voice. And finally, I just kind of ripped the Band-Aid off at that time. And I said, let's do it. And that's actually why it's called Just Get Started, because I knew there were a ton of people out there just like me that, came from a different background, maybe was a late bloomer, had a different mindset early on that was a little more sheltered and needed to overcome the fear to get started on their path to happiness. So that's why it's called Just Get Started. And, as we sit here today, I just launched episode, 117, and going strong. So,
and that's impressive. I imagine, we're on episode 6 and I imagine after maybe 10, 15, 20 episodes, a lot of people probably kind of give up, and to see you pushing strong makes me want to do better for myself. It's a really good inspiration, and, not just to just get started, but to see you actually do it is inspiring to me.
I appreciate that.
And so I guess I wanted to know is, you said 2013, 2016, 2017. What was it that finally you just said, screw it, I am doing this? Was there a tipping point? Was there anything that happened that made you just take the plunge?
Well, if I go back a little deeper, so 2015, I went to, and I think we've talked about this several times about the MLC Connect conference that, for sports designers. And so I went to that conference and I met a guy by the name of Adam Martin. Great podcast called Makers of Sport. Especially anyone in the design world should check that out. But anyways, I met him and I had a really good conversation, and we were talking about podcasting at that time. And I was like, man, I'm gonna start a podcast. And we were talking about some ideas. Well, sure enough, a year later, I saw him at the same conference, and we had another talk about podcasting, and I had not started it yet. So I kind of had my tail between my legs. So I said, man, I'm going to start one. No, I'm doing it. Like, this is the year. I saw him back at that same conference in 2017. So now 2 full years later, this guy must be thinking I'm crazy, because I'm like, I'm saying I'm going to start a podcast and I'm whatever. And I remember telling him, I said, no BS anymore. And actually Chris Garcia, who founded the conference, we were all, the three of us were talking. I said, I'm literally starting this podcast. No BS. You guys are both going to be guests on it. And sure enough, I've had both of them on. But that was the final straw, because I had to go to sleep at night and I had to look in the mirror every morning and keep saying, like, why are you saying you're going to do stuff and then you're not doing it? What are you really scared of? And what I was scared of was myself. You know, I had grown up with a lot of, confidence issues. I was a middle child. I didn't get a lot of attention growing up. So that it still, had bothered me. It's been a long road to overcome that. I don't know if I've fully gotten to that point, but I'd like to say I'm about as close as I've ever been to overcoming that. But that was the reason. I think it was over that time, I just didn't have the confidence in myself to push forward.
So I guess my question from that though would be, do you think this would be the subject of your podcast if you had started in 2013? Because it was almost like your roadblock that became your subject matter.
Well, 2015, when I first considered the podcast, so whatever that is, 5 years ago now. Yeah. I mean, I was going to do a podcast on the 49ers. I was going to do a golf podcast. Like, I had a bunch of ideas I had thrown around, and I've always loved entrepreneurship. I've always wanted to do my own thing. So I'm assuming it would have been somewhere around that. Like, the entrepreneurship angle was something I thought about for a while, but yeah, the whole Just Get Started, it was because I went through that for a couple of years. And that's the whole point. I think we all have to go through those experiences, good and bad. But if I could help someone get that a little quicker, that's the goal, right? I don't, maybe not have as much heartache, although, hey, that's important. But at some point it's like, you're always learning from the people before you. So hopefully they can move a little bit quicker than you did.
Exactly. And that's exactly why this is called the pursuit of happiness, not what is happiness. It's all about the journey. It's the ups and the downs, and you're living proof of that, and you're coming out the other side. So I guess what I'm super interested in is the story of how you got there. That's what people are going to relate to. And there are people listening to this podcast, in fear of trying to do something and trying to take a leap, not necessarily starting their own podcast, but starting a business or asking somebody on a date. So I guess let's go back to where you said growing up, like you said you had like confidence issues. What were some things that you did growing up to work on that to get to the point of where you are today?
Well, I didn't know any better growing up. That was the problem. I did a lot of things because I had to do them. So for instance, like my parents, I mean, we were all, I think, kind of middle class, right? And where we grew up, but I didn't really get a lot of stuff from my parents in terms of like them giving me money and just buying shit for me and whatever. So like I had a paper route starting at 11 years old. And I actually had that paper route for 6 years, and I did some other odd jobs here and there. I remember, I was scooping ice cream for like a summer, and I did all these different things. And I worked at the golf course for a couple of years prior to going to college. So like I learned a lot of lessons just from that. And it's one of those things, I look back now, that's why I call myself a late bloomer, is I didn't realize it back then. I didn't realize the work ethic, getting up at, because I don't know if I ever like joked around with this with you guys, but like when you were sleeping in on a snow day, I was getting up delivering papers at 5:30 in the morning on that same snow day.
Right.
And that was one of those things until I look back later in life that I realized that was ingrained in me, like that work ethic and be able to do that. Like, so as I got complacent in my 20s and basically a bit lazy, I started to realize like, hold on, you've done this before. Let's just continue. Let's just rewrite that same story because you have it in you, that drive to actually accomplish something. So yeah, I wouldn't say I actually recognized it back as a kid, but it's something that I learned later on in life. Now, some of the things I did recognize was, my grandparents. I had the greatest group of grandparents that I could ask for in terms of, and I think we all that were fortunate to be around grandparents growing up, you learn a lot of different things from them. I probably learned some things I shouldn't have as well, but I learned some phenomenal things, about gratitude and selflessness and stuff like that, from my grandparents. And I think that has helped me because one of the things I've always had is empathy. And I think part of that was being the middle child, being able to, we didn't show, in my family, like we didn't show, I don't remember the last time my dad told me he loved me. We just don't say that. We just don't do that.
I
That's
can
not how I was
really,
brought
I
up,
get that. I
you
definitely get
know?
that. Yeah.
So, but by the way, that's fine. But for me, that's where I think I learned a lot of empathy early on, because I really wanted to. Now, like my grandparents showed me that, but I really wanted to show emotion, show feeling. I wanted to be able to, reach out and help folks and stuff. So anyways, those things, it took a while, but as I started to reflect and pull those all together, it's been amazing, because I'm like, wait a minute, I have a lot of these tools. I just didn't know they were there because they got uncovered by a lot of the negativity I was around, a lot of maybe bad decisions, financially or whatever, that kind of, put me in a hole, whatever it is. But that's just life, you go through that. So I'm here now, fortunate, and we'll keep pressing forward.
So you brought up the word mindset, and I feel like no matter how many times we say it, or we won't do mindset justice. I feel like mindset is something that makes life so much better or so much worse, depending on where you are in your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say your like biggest influences were, like getting your mindset to where it is today?
You mean people or books, or just in general
Yeah, just in
observations?
general, just what do you use or what do you do, or the books you've read to get your mindset strengthened?
A lot of the things I think partly is really just looking in the mirror. The accountability mirror, as Goggins talks
David
about,
Goggins, love me some
right?
Goggins.
I have two things written in my mirror right now. If you look at my bathroom, I have two. One actually is what Goggins right? Why am I here? And the other one says, why can't it be you? And I wrote those on there because for me, remember I had the confidence issues, is to keep telling myself that why can't I be the one that starts a business or changes the world or puts a smile on someone's face or whatever it is? Why can't I be the one to do it? Why do I have to sit in the back seat, right? Why do I got to be in the bench when someone else is playing the game? That's bullshit. Everyone can be playing the game. Everyone can be in it if they want to be in it. So I think part of that was just, and it was probably a change for me. I would say probably around the turn of last decade, probably 09, 2010, 2011, when I had my son, I definitely think that changed my mindset a lot on where I want to go. What do I want to show him? So, and it's been a process. But the reality is that you have to continue each and every day to be positive, to have gratitude, to keep showing up. You can't just, we all have bad days. We all have days when we're pissed off or whatever. But I know that my tone is way better now. I do not get nearly upset. Hardly ever. Probably the most I get upset is on the golf course if I miss a golf shot, but that's for, a short period of time and then I'm back at it. But that's it, because I started to realize that there's greater tragedies in life. I got it really good. So why am I getting upset of this little thing? I'm actually reading a book right now. I would absolutely recommend to everyone out there, by Byron Katie. A lot of folks might have read it. It's called Loving What Is. And it's phenomenal, just about how you think about things in the world and how you have to just live with reality, right? That's just what it is. So I can get upset at the way someone maybe, gets upset at me, or someone yells at me or whatever. I can get upset, but that's how they are toward me. So I can't control that. So I just have to, the reality is they're upset at me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting all, how worried some or whatever. Like that's one example, but the book's phenomenal. The reality is, though, I'm talking in circles here. I'm going to land the plane eventually. The reality is there's a lot of things you can do, but the first thing you have to do, that at least I've learned, is you have to decide to make the change. Mm-hmm. You have to decide to say that I want to get better. I want to live life differently. And once I made that change, it's been a game changer.
And like you said, just show up. If you keep showing up, you'll prove it to yourself. I can do this. Yeah, I got to go through the hard times to get through this. A lot of people might even just kind of say that, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, and then you'll find them eating chocolate that night or something. Like, show up, do the work, get through it, and it proves to yourself, and that's how you really get strong. And I love how you said David Goggins. So David, I'll give him a shout out too. The Can't Hurt Me book. So I mean, that's not it's a book for everybody, but at the same time, not a book for everyone. It's very strong language and very graphic stories. But man, I don't know of a book that's better for mindset. That guy just puts himself through hell. And
I would recommend the audiobook.
The audio is fantastic.
Yeah. Way better than reading it, I have to imagine. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know how you read that book after listening to the audiobook.
The audiobook's amazing. Because they give the interviews in between the chapters and he goes into more detail. So I don't know how you can't love that. But so going back to kind of mindset. So knowing that we come from similar places, same age, whatnot, I guess my biggest block was kind of like you. I'm just a guy in Raleigh who's going to want to listen to me. And I think that was one of my biggest, I wouldn't say it was a fear, but it was kind of, why bother? Why bother doing this? And like you just said, and you write in your accountability mirror, why can't it be you? And I feel like I just told myself that enough, like, why can't it be me? Why can't I have a successful podcast? However, I'm doing this partially because it'd be fun to be successful, but the other part of it is a passion project. And I feel like it's really good for me to get me on my pursuit of happiness, to learn from people like you who have a path. And I want to take from that. I want my audience to take from that, whatever they can take to make them happier, make them more confident, to have a better mindset. And I feel like this conversation right here is like perfect. Like we are just two people born in upstate New York in the middle of, nowhere or whatever. And here we are, we're doing things. And like you said, it's all based on mindset. Just, you got to get over the hump.
Right. And I think part of it too is to understand where you want to go, and not where you want to go to know like what the outcome is. Like, hey, I'm not a big believer of like, hey, I want to be a CEO in 10 years and you put the flag in the ground. I'm not a big believer in that. I call it the North Star. You kind of want to know the direction you're headed, but there's a lot of life events that happen. The one other thing that kind of got me over the hump is I had thought about it of the wasted 2 years. So, when I kind of self-reflected in 2017, when I kind of officially coined the name Just Get Started with the podcast, it was like September of 2017. But I had thought about the last 2 years. How many episodes did I miss out on? How many conversations did I miss out on? How many networking opportunities did I miss out on from not doing it? And that's what not only helped me get the podcast going and off the ground, it's what continues to keep it going today. And just whether it's reaching out to random people and having them on, I love talking to, folks that may not be as well known as others. Although, I actually just interviewed, it won't launch until November, Seth Godin, and folks listening in. I mean, Seth Godin is one of the most well-known names in the world. I don't know how many books he's written, 18 books, and, he's a marketing and branding expert and a variety of other things. But the reason I mention that is I just reached out to him and he said yes. And those things, you don't know they're going to happen, but I never could have thought 2.5 years ago I would have had a chance to have Seth on the podcast and talk with him. Mm-hmm. But those are the cool things that I can at least share now because I've went through the suck of doing the podcast. Some weeks, I'm swamped, I still got a full-time job and I'm swamped with other things. Right. So to be able to put the podcast out and edit it and all those other things. And there's times certainly I'd be like, oh my God, I should stop this or pause it. But what keeps me going is the fact that all the people I haven't met yet, and the stories that I get to share that hopefully can help that one person, the other Ryan McGuire out there that wants to start a podcast or wants to, get in the best shape of their life or wants to, go out on their own journey, whatever it is. So that's what's cool for me. And that's what keeps me kind of pining for more guests and more interviews and more episodes.
So I think it's fair to say, but I'll let you say it, like this podcast, this entire journey has made you happier, correct?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it's something that I decided to do. I don't take any sponsorship money. I don't have any advertisements. I do what I want to do. I talk with the guests I want to talk with. I ask the questions I want to ask. This is my baby. And that's what makes it the most fun for me, is that I don't have anyone controlling what I do or what I say or whatever. So that's what one of the key pieces that makes me happy is to continue to do the podcast, but it's just more because I get to do it on my terms.
It's authentic. It's authentically you, which is fantastic. Now, like, you may have already touched on this, but let's go back. So what is some advice if you were to have to give yourself, maybe let's say 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
Besides start earlier?
Besides start early, yeah. Or just like, I don't know, you've already mentioned a lot of good things. So just curious if it's one of those or.
I mean, you can't make a mistake. Off the cuff that I'm thinking of is, I wish I told that person, you can't make a mistake. You can't do anything wrong, because the reality is we don't know. There's only, you have two paths you can go on, right? If you really think about it, right? I can go left or right if you make it that simple. I always like to use the matrix, right? You can take the red or the blue pill.
Right.
But once you take the red pill, there's no going back to the blue pill, because even if it's 10 minutes later, your fate has already changed. So I kind of get really deep into stuff like that. It's like, once I go down a path, I can't have regret, because I made the decision at the time I had with the information that I had. And generally most of the decisions I make are my gut and my intuition. And at least because I can live with them. If they're wrong, I can live with them. If they're right, that's awesome. But I can't go back and have regret and say, oh, I shouldn't have done this, because whatever that was allowed me to go to the next step and allowed me to sit here with you tonight. So I would just say you can't make a mistake, because you got to try things. You got to get out there. You don't know what you're going to be doing. As an example, right? Like I'm writing, children's books right now. 10 years ago, you asked me if I'm going to write a children's book, or 15 years ago, or when I graduated high school, like I barely passed English, dude. Like and I have the sales book I'm writing right now. Like I would, if you thought I was going to be a writer, like an author, be like, what are you kidding me, dude? But it's because I'm like, who cares? I want to write. I like doing that, and I'm going to do it. So I think you have to try things and put yourself out there, and some stuff will stick, some won't. Who cares though?
And you learn from the ones that don't. That just makes you better. The ones that stick, it'll make you better. And I would say one of the things, just to kind of add on to that, one of the things that I've learned over the last, I'd say, decade a lot, when I've done a lot of growing in the last 5 to 10 years, is that everyone is human. And what I mean by that is, like, growing up, you kind of put people on a pedestal, or you're afraid. You just said Seth Godin. Maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have been a little nervous or afraid to reach out to him. Like, who am I? I'm Brian Ondrako. I live in North Carolina. I'm just some random guy. But at the end of the day, everyone is human. We all have the same emotions. We all have the same feelings. No one is better than you. No one is below you. And I'll never forget, I know you're great friends with John, and, I've known John since as long as I've known you. That I think it was probably about 10 years ago, ran into somebody at a bar, and it was a girl that I had talked to before. And I'll never forget, I said, yeah, I think she's a little out of my league. And John looked at me, he said, no one's out of your league. And to this day, I still remember that. And that has stuck with me, that no one is out of your league. It's all mindset. It's if you don't believe that they are any better than you, or you don't worship somebody, and you can get over that, I think it just makes life so much better. That, like I said, everyone is human. We all go through the same things. And if there's a shot you want to take it. There's no reason it can't be you. You
don't know what's going to happen either. I think, the Seneca quote, that I love, we suffer most often in imagination than in reality. We worry so much, and it hasn't even happened yet. So what are we worrying about? That's one thing I got stuck up with so much, is like, I worry about the outcome. Years ago, I don't do it as much anymore, but you worry so much about what's going to happen, and you haven't even hit the shot yet. So
Well,
why are you
speaking
so,
of shot, it reminds me, if you watch the Jordan documentary, how
right?
he said, why would I worry about the shot I haven't taken?
Yep, exactly.
It just takes up negative headspace. You know what I mean? Like it just gets
Exactly.
you in a bad mind frame.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And obviously he's a great champion. So, that's something he's learned over the years as well. And you got to have that steel trap. But I just think, to your point, obviously, like the, asking the girl, whatever. Yeah. It's just how you feel about yourself. If you think that you have something to offer and that and I think part of it comes down to like self-love. This is something I've thought about a lot more recently, is like, you have to love yourself. We're so about like being selfless and giving back to others. But if you don't love yourself, if you can't be happy, like being alone and be comfortable with your thoughts and the things that you want to do, that's a problem. And if you don't solve that, well, you probably aren't going to go out with that girl, because she's going to be like, she's going to see that pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So I think part of that is going back, how do you develop yourself to be a better person for what you want and be a little selfish? And then ultimately that could lead to being able to be selfless to other people. And I'll tell you what, there's countless examples of this, but if you just, I'm kind of going back to the just get started, right? But if you just get started with a mindset in that direction, it starts leading you. It's like that the momentum rolling down the hill,
Well, it's almost like body follows the mind, mind follows the body type of thing, just keep rolling and things will happen. And whether it's you consider it good or bad, even if it's you consider it bad, you're going to learn from it. So it ends up being good. It's going to point you in the right direction of where you should be.
Yeah. And part of it too is, this is one of the things now with social media is we're looking at what other people like, oh, they look like they're doing this or they're way ahead here. But the reality is that we're all in different points of our life and we all have our unique experiences. So it's hard to compare one versus the other. But for some reason we get caught up in that. Like, oh man, they got this opportunity or this success. Well, sometimes it's luck, right? We know luck happens. A lot of times luck, you don't see the hard work and the opportunity that, that came because of that hard work behind it. But nonetheless, sometimes you get lucky breaks and, whatever. We all hear the story of, hey, someone got discovered at a bar, to be in some movie or something. Yeah, that happens here and there. But the reality is most of the time, and I hear this throughout episodes of my podcast, it's consistency. You put in the hard work, you keep moving forward. But I think the one thing to keep in mind is that just because someone else is perceived doing better or different, that's their path that they're on. Why are you worried about them?
Right.
Do something better if you want to get ahead quicker, or just keep on your path and keep plugging along and your time will come. So I think it's going back to stop worrying about other people and what they're doing and where they're at in life and focus on yourself. And you're going to be happier that way. That's what I found is I'm happier when I don't think about what other people are doing. I can be happy for people that, hey, they're doing that. They're out there. But if I'm worrying about what someone's doing, geez, that's taking
what's
a lot of my
funny?
headspace.
What's funny is I would say in the last maybe 5 years or so, I am like genuinely happy for people. Whereas before that, if you were to ask me, I think I would have the mindset like, why isn't that me? Why can't that be me? What did I do wrong? But the mindset has definitely changed with myself being more confident in who I am, what I have to offer, and the things I'm working on. I'm not even concerned about what everyone else is doing. If they are successful and they accomplish, what their goals are, that's awesome. I am all for that. They had the right mindset. They just got started. They did their thing. That's awesome. It motivates me. Whereas, like I said before, it was kind of like, why not me? And I think a big help with that is the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Have you read that book?
I haven't. It's been proposed to me many times.
Yeah, read it.
It's on my list, but it's
read it.
Read it yet.
It's a lot of it is about comparing yourself to others and just not giving a fuck about it. Like if you look on Instagram or Facebook and you see all these photos of people being so happy together in relationships or this and that, and it's like, I can't compete with that. What kind of life are they living? Like this, that's crazy. Like how much money are they making? And look how happy they are. Why can't I be that happy? And it leads to at least to being miserable.
Yeah.
And
It actually drains your energy,
it drains
right?
your energy. It doesn't get you anywhere. And honestly, as you and I both know, we're both on social media. We're not overly on social media, but a lot of what you post is just what you want the people to see. And so you don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. You kind of have to remind yourself, like, hey, if they're having a good time, that's great. I am focused doing what I got to do. I'm not concerned about that whatsoever.
Right.
You know?
Agreed.
Yeah. It's the whole social media part, man, there's pros and cons to that. And if you look at my Instagram feed, my personal one, obviously I'm on a podcast one, is just it's literally my dogs, my travels, and occasional stuff with my family or whatnot. I keep it light. It is what it is. I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I am focused doing what I got to do behind closed doors. And then lo and behold, I got a podcast coming out, bam, here we go. Like I didn't need to keep telling people about that. It's just I don't try to keep up with people on social media. That's going down a terrible path.
I've actually started. I mean, if I didn't have the podcast, I probably would hardly be on social media. So, you look at my Instagram feed, most of my posts are the podcast and promoting the guests week after week. I'll do a post here and there for myself, but I don't need to throw stuff out there. Every once in a while I will. But I've been taking these little detoxes. I actually took a week. Well, I did 30 days. I was off.
Yeah, tell me about
media.
that because I remember you took 30 days off. I'm curious to know how that went for you and what you got out of that.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could be off all together. I was off in January. Yep, I took every day off, and it was good. I documented that journey, and it was the first couple of days were very weird. Like I remember day 2. So what I did was I deleted all the apps. So my main ones that I'm on: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I deleted those apps. And I remember like day 2, I think I picked up my phone 6 times, I counted, like to go click on, I think like Instagram or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't there. So I couldn't go on it. So I put my phone back down. But after like, when I got to like day 7, I think this is most like statistics around habits anyways. But when I was like at day 7, day 8, 9, 10, 11, like that range, I actually started to not care. Actually, the last 2 weeks, I don't even remember thinking about going on social media. So it took a little bit, a week or 2, but once that kicked into gear, I was not even like worried about it.
I'm sure it's amazing. I mean, you can, comment on this. I'm sure it's amazing how much more space you have in your mind to focus on the things you want instead of scrolling through Facebook and Instagram, looking at all these other things. Whereas that not being an option, all you can do is focus on the things you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be such a benefit.
Right. And, I actually felt bad because I wasn't promoting the guests for the podcast during that month. And I let them all know. I said, hey, listen, I'll start promoting these once February comes, but I'm taking this detox and whatever. They were fine with it. It's not like some big, was a big deal. And I didn't miss much. That's the thing. I didn't miss much. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to catch up on some stuff with the news, I can pull up, my news app or whatever. I'd see something on TV. Like, it's not like I missed a ton of stuff. And then I took another detox for 7 days, actually last month. I did for an entire week. And I've thought about, do I take off maybe like Sundays? I'll just not post. But the thing for me is I'm not addicted to it. So it's not one of those things where like, oh, I got to take off a day every week or a week every month or whatever. Like I just have to temper myself. I moved all my apps to the, my third screen, right? So I have to scroll 2 times on my phone to get to that, those apps. So it's a little harder to get to them. So maybe I don't think about it as much, but I'll still go on it a little bit. And again, every day is a little different. So I don't have the right formula yet. But I'm sure at some point I'll get to a point where I either take off the weekends or, a Sunday or something like that, just to kind of temper it a little bit. But.
And do you feel like deleting those has allowed you to be a little more present in the moment? And if so, like how has being present, I guess, helped you with your mindset?
Well, yeah, when I deleted the apps in January, and then when I did my week one here a week ago or a month ago, yeah, obviously not having the access to them was helpful. Sometimes you have to take the chips out of the cupboard. and so
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
snack.
If you don't want to drink the soda, don't put it in the fridge.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Insert whatever analogy. But yeah, I mean, I think being present, that's the whole point of it. You know, I did a meditation for a couple of years. I don't meditate as much right now. I don't need it as much. But you know, from time to time I may try to do that. But my whole point about being present is just live in the moment. Like stop worry. This goes back to the worry. Stop worrying about what's going to happen in an hour or next day or in a week or 2 weeks. Like when that comes up, now I might have to prepare for certain things. So I may be thinking about it, but I think being present is just, again, kind of living around what we're doing now. Like if I'm always thinking about the next thing and not worrying about today, you know, again, I can't have as much fun, I don't think, because now my mind is racing with, you know, 10 different ideas. So,
And I will say that is something I'm getting better at. I'm learning. And I guess I'm throwing myself in the fire a little bit doing these podcasts. Is you have to be in the moment. When we're having this conversation, if I'm thinking about something that's going on tomorrow or what I'm going to ask you in 10 minutes, we're not going to have the kind of conversation that I want to have. It's going to be a terrible product. Yeah, living in the moment is something that I'm learning. It's part of my pursuit of happiness. And it's funny how you said meditation as well, because that is something I most certainly should start. I will start. And I want to dive in deeper on future episodes about meditation.
yeah.
I don't want to go too deep into the weeds with that. Real quick, what has meditation done for you?
We'll go back to, like, you know, mindfulness is a word that's used a lot. Go back to being present. It just allowed me to be with myself, right? Be in my thoughts. Because when you really get into it and you carve out all the excess noise that's in the world, and you can just sit there, whether it's for 10 minutes or 20 or 30 or whatever, however long you want to do it, it just allows you to be with your thoughts and control. And what it's helped me with is being able to control when I'm actually in the, you know, the quote unquote real world. If I'm in a situation, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like I can hit the pause button for a couple seconds. So instead of overreacting really quickly, it gives me a few extra seconds of just thoughtfulness before I make a decision, which has allowed me to diffuse a lot of situations. And it has allowed me to not maybe, you know, because I can be fiery a little bit with folks. You know, I can, maybe it's the New York in me, I don't know, but you can get into, you know, an argument or whatever. But I think it's helped me over especially the last couple of years, really diffuse a lot of situations, step away, you know, and just be a little bit more thoughtful about what I, you know, would say or should say, versus just kind of, you know, being off the cuff, you know.
So would you say with meditation, do you try to like turn everything off? Do you turn off, or do you kind of put yourself in more of like you hear athletes will try to visualize the game before it happens? Is that more of your, like?
I mean, I do a lot of guided meditation. So I use the Headspace app. So a lot of it's guided. It's not just me sitting with and just, you know, close my eyes for 30 minutes and kind of thinking through things. I'll do a lot of guided meditation. So I don't, you know, I'm sure the athletes do, you know, whatever they do, but I found the Headspace app to be nice because I like how it guides me through. And what's funny always is when I do start drifting off, because sometimes you'll get caught like doing, you know, thinking of something outside what you should. And then like Andy's one of the co-founders, like he's the one, generally the voice that you'll listen to. He'll pull you back and he'll be, you know, hey, center back up. And you're like, oh yeah, he caught, you know, kind of caught me. And because you just drift off here and there. So that's what's, it allows you to control your thoughts just a little bit more. I mean, it worked for me. May not work for you, may not work for other people. I've talked with other people that said, I've tried, you know, meditation, it just doesn't work. That's fine. But, you know, you can go to the Headspace app. You can, you know, I think they have a free trial you can use if you want to try it. I think they have some free, just, you know, whatever, 10-minute episodes or whatever to try.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to at least go out there. And there's probably a dozen other.
Yeah, I actually downloaded the Calm app. I have that for the year. I'm just honestly, there's some things I'm terrible at. Meditation, getting started is one of them. Yoga is one of them. I have to take your motto of just get started. And I certainly will. And I'm taking everything from this conversation to motivate me to not just do the things I do like and I have passion for, but it's doing the things I don't necessarily care for, kind of
Yeah.
fixing my flaws or my weaknesses and making them better.
Well, it's 10 minutes too. I mean, those apps, you can do a 5-minute, 10-minute meditation, 20-minute. I used to actually do it before bed because it kind of relaxed me. Now I'll read before bed because one of the things that and this goes back to sleep, right? I know it's important for you as well, is, I turn off all the devices and the computers and everything generally about 30 minutes prior to bed. I just don't want the blue light. I don't want the noise from those devices, and I'll read actually before bed every night. So that's kind of become my meditation because I said, it calms me down, it calms my brain down, and it allows me to soak in a little bit of new knowledge, right? So I kind of best of both worlds there for me.
So I'm genuinely curious, of all the people that you've interviewed, which has now been over 100, which is amazing in itself. They're all pretty successful people. They've obviously just got started with what they've wanted to do. Is there something that you've recognized, something or some things between like all of them that kind of connect the dots of how they got over their hump? Like what's a commonality that they all have that you've kind of picked up on?
Well, one of the biggest is that they keep moving. They're consistent. They realize that, it's not a short game. So where we talked earlier, right? Some folks will do 8 podcast episodes and quit, and that's fine. Everyone has their reasons, or they'll try something else for they'll do the next diet or whatever. But everyone, at least I've had a wide range of guests on the podcast, wide range. But I would say that consistency is probably the glaring key. If you had to, like, Brian, pick one thing across every 100 and whatever, now, even with the interviews not launched, it's in the, the mid 120s. But if you think of all of them, it's consistency, that they've kept moving forward. They've had failures, they've had a pivot, they've done other things, but they kept moving the ship forward versus quitting and going back and watching Netflix, for the rest of the night. So they've actually decided that, hey, you know what, I'm going to actually figure this out. Good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to keep moving forward. So consistency is probably numero uno. If I had to,
is that where you got that saying for your mirror, like the accountability mirror, or was that something you heard from somewhere else? Because obviously you're learning a lot from all of your guests, which is amazing.
Which question?
The just show up,
Oh, not the Goggins one. You're
not the Goggins. I know the Goggins one. I know where that came from.
Why can't it be you? No, why can't it be you is something, and maybe I picked it up in passing just randomly, but I just was thinking about it one day. It's like, because whether it was the children's books or other things, I would beat myself up. I'm my own worst critic. So I would beat myself up over and over and over again. And that's why eventually I was just like, why can't you be the one that changes the world? I'll butcher the Steve Jobs quote, so I won't say it, but, just around like, basically you can change the world if you want to. So that's why I have that. The Goggins quote is the one I love just because it's like, why am I here? So I'll ask myself, why am I here? And I'll ask that during workouts too, a lot of the time, like if I'm pumping through, where it's like, you showed up, that one of my favorite quotes is, I live by a lot of quotes, is before you quit, remember why you started, because it gets tough. You get down on yourself. You lose focus. But if you go back to the beginning, what I didn't tell you earlier is, there was a few reasons why I started the podcast. The probably the number one reason that I really started the podcast was for my son, because I wanted him, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whether I'm still on this planet or not, that he can go back and listen to and say, you know what, my dad actually took the leap and did something. And he helped others and he interviewed people. That's what he loved to do. and it could be something that he kind of cherishes. So that's one of the main reasons I started, because I said, I'm not going to be able to look my son in the face when he gets, older and wants to do certain things and say, man, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, go after it. And I'm going to be like, I'm telling a lie because I'm not doing what I want.
Right.
So if I'm not out there doing what I want and trying and failing and testing and tweaking and whatever, how am I going to be able to tell him that he can do what he wants to?
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, you're living proof of just getting started, and you literally you just touched on it, about writing a children's book, and you're just getting started now writing books. So if you want to touch on that, let's hear about it.
Yeah, and the book's another great story, right? I started writing the book in 2012, and then I stopped. Wasn't in a great marriage, and didn't have the support system that I needed at the time. And basically, I was told it's a dumb book, right? What are you writing a book for? Focus on your sales career and those type of things. And so I stopped. So I had almost, I'd probably say I had 60, 70% of the book. It's a fun, rhyming book. And then I picked it up about, now it's probably going on a year and a half ago, where I picked it back up and I said, I'm finishing this damn thing. And, because the reason I wrote it was for my son. And it's about, this first one's about getting started in golf and, just the excitement of trying that out and having the support systems around golf and playing and stuff. So yeah, I said, I'm getting it done. I'm almost done. The illustration's taken a little longer than I wanted, but we're moving forward, and hopefully it'll be launched in the next, month or two at latest.
That's I can't wait to read it. I mean,
yeah, but again, it's one of those things like you sometimes it doesn't always happen as you want, right? If I can go back and say, yeah, I would have loved to launch it in 2013, 2014. I wasn't ready at that time, I guess. For me, it wasn't the right time. But now I was able to pick it back up, move forward with it. And not only that, like I said, I have a second one that I've already written. I'm looking for an illustrator. I have a sales book I'm writing right now. So this is something I've realized, and it just took a little bit longer, but it just shows that and that's what I always encourage for folks that may be listening in, go look back earlier in your life. It might have been a year ago or 2 years or 5 or 10 or whatever, something that you started and you put down and you didn't finish, go pick it back up. Maybe now's the time. Go revisit it. Who knows? So that would be my encouragement, because I'm sure there's other folks out there with a similar story to mine.
And I like how you brought up the support system. Mm-hmm. I feel like surrounding yourself with a really good support system and friends or family that believe in you and believe in what you're doing, that are going to encourage you, and not the people that will discourage you from your dreams and your goals. It's you telling somebody an idea and them saying, that sounds amazing, go for it, what can I do to help? Having those people around you make all the difference in the world, because if you have the negative people just keep tearing you down, bringing you down, it's just kind of jealousy and insecurities. It really eats into you, and it makes you feel like you can't do it, or maybe I shouldn't do it, or brings doubt into the situation. And I don't know if I approached this properly, but you knew about the podcast I was starting. A few other friends knew about the podcast, and that was it. I really wanted no negativity around it. Like, why are you doing that? What's the purpose of that? What's it about? And I just wanted it to be all positive and all support. And like I said, I'm not sure if I took the right road to do that, but I'm happy. That's literally all it was positivity. And so surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, want the best for you, and will help you get there makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it sure does. And by the way, support systems are supposed to be there to criticize you as well, and to tell you that that's a dumb decision, but it's doing it in a way where there's trust and respect. Mm-hmm. And that's where it comes down to. If there's not trust and respect, yeah, when you tell someone this is stupid or dumb or whatever, insert whatever negative word, it comes off a little different. And by the way, too, I also believe, it goes back to the whole FDR thing of, or not FDR, is Theodore Roosevelt. I'm losing my mind here. I'm getting my presidents wrong, for, the man in the arena. Mm. And, if you haven't heard Man in the Arena, go search it online and read it. And it's a phenomenal speech he did. And the whole point with that is when one of the things that I've learned a lot over the last, let's say, year and a half or 2 years is stop listening to people that are not willing to take the chance and the risk. So the armchair quarterbacks, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's in the game and if they're doing some things and they're pushing along, and if I go to them for advice or insight, and I'm going to take their feedback, whatever they give. I want to hear the negative just as much as the positive, because that I think that helps us make it better. But if they're not in the game, if they're sitting on the sidelines and they're screaming, from the sidelines and saying, this is not good, whatever, I don't even take that anymore. I don't even see that as relevant, because you're not even in the game. You don't know what it's like to go through the trials and tribulations and push forward with something where you have to overcome fear and anxiety and, all these type of emotions that you do, whether it's entrepreneurship or you call it whatever, just kind of going out on your own journey and trying things, being different, being unique. So that's what the big thing about support systems. And I've audited my support systems a lot. I've cut a lot of people out of my life, and not cut them out where like I won't ever talk to them again. Like if they call me, I'll talk to them, or if I see them in passing, but I just don't have the need. And I've replaced with others. I talk very highly about this group called Next Gen that I went to their summit a little over a year ago, but I've had both their founders now on my podcast. But I've met just a tremendous amount of individuals that I've had Zoom calls with, or I've met in person, and a lot of back and forth dialogue on where we can help each other and, pitching ideas back and forth. But those folks are, again, they're in the arena, they're trying things, they're testing, they're tasting. So that's the support system that I want to be involved with going forward. And that's why I started to choose better circles versus some of the ones that I had, in a prior life.
And yes, I mean, it kind of seems like you're choosing to be around like-minded people. And it's funny because looking at it from a broad scope, when you are basically interviewing all the people that are like-minded, so it's, you're building your network and you're learning from the people you want to learn from, and you all have the same mindset. And I believe we were talking just a few weeks ago how you were saying you guys all have respect for each other and how big that is. And that really, kind of rang a bell with me. Like that's
the
huge.
Camaraderie. I mean, I think that's part of it. We're playing a different game, right? We're all in our own life and we're trying to achieve whatever, North Star we want to go after, but we're all in the same game, meaning we're all trying to race together. So why not help each other out? Like why, what are the whole saying here about, you want to build the tallest, building in the city, not, by building the tallest building, not by tearing others down.
Right.
And that's just how I choose to live my life, with positivity and gratitude and a lot of optimism. I don't really have the space for negativity or anything like that. So that's why I diffuse a lot of those situations I walk away from. I just want to be in areas that, again, not that they can't have, criticism or, tough feedback. Like that's important. That's how we grow.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah. Constructive. That's how we grow.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's coming from a place of, a place, like I said, of people that really don't even know what it's like to branch out and try things and overcome fear, whether you succeed or fail, it's just not necessary to take their insight and advice.
The older I get and the more I actually talk with you and actually a few others, the more I realize how important it is to have people around you that are like-minded. And I know we've had plenty of conversations off the record of growing up with the same friends, the same group of friends forever. And there still always be our friends. Mm-hmm. But I've struggled occasionally just not having the same relationship as I did with them 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that kind of got to me occasionally when I overthought it. But like you would say, it's different phases of life, different frame of minds. We're all on different paths. And that was so helpful kind of for me to realize that we're all on different paths, and surrounding yourself with the people that are on a path that's similar to you or a path that you want to go on is it's a game changer. It's a game changer for your life, and it's going to help you in so many ways to get to where you want to go.
And as we talked about before, not getting caught up in like, this is the reality. Like in the past, if someone didn't call me back, going back to my needing attention and the neediness when I was younger, I would get kind of upset, like, oh, they haven't called me back yet, or they said they would. But now I live in the reality of, they don't want to call me back. There's some reason, something came up, or then that's fine. There's no hard feelings. If you don't want to call me, don't call me. If I want to call them, then I will call them. But if I don't want to call them either, then we don't call each other. And it's just like, that's just life. Like, that's okay.
Right.
So I try to take myself out of that situation and look at it from a different lens. Another book, I'm just remembering it now, I failed to mention it earlier, I would absolutely recommend, is called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. That's another absolutely phenomenal book, looking differently, a different lens of perspective from a self-awareness standpoint. Absolutely recommend. If you haven't read it, you should definitely be looking at it.
It's on my list now.
It's a short read too. It's not a long book.
So I think it's probably a good time to start wrapping this up. But I would say one of the main key points I took from this conversation is consistency and showing up and just kind of pushing through is just everything that kind of changed everything for you. That's going to help lead to somebody getting to where they want to go.
Right. And doing what you want, right? I wanted to start a podcast. I want to write books. For insert person out there wants to climb mountains, or they want to, whatever. They want to be the jump rope champion of the world. I don't know. I'm just making stuff. I have no idea. Go ahead and do it. That's what I love about Goggins. We were talking about earlier, he wanted to, run races. So he ran them. He wanted he wanted to have the world record in pull-ups. So he did it. Like, whatever you want to accomplish, the only thing that is stopping you is you. That's it. It's the only thing. There's nothing else stopping you. Certainly there will be barriers. There will be harder hills to climb. But if you don't even have the wherewithal to say, it's me and I have to start this thing, well, then you're never even going to have the chance to go through those. So,
and the more you show up, the more you're proving to yourself you can do it. You will get through this.
And humans are way more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. So yes, there might be rejection, or yes, there might be tough times, but at the end of the day, the risk is way, way better. Because that reward, you may never even get there, right? It may be so down the line. Who is it? Oh, Brene Brown. I heard her on a podcast a while ago, and I thought what she said was really clever and probably apropos for this moment. Is I leap for the feeling in the air, basically, not for the landing.
Yeah.
If that's, I get the joy out of actually getting into the trenches and trying and just seeing what I can make of myself versus the actual destination. You may never get there, or it might change, but actually trying and going through that, that's what's fun. That's what I found exciting, even about writing the book. I'm going through this sales book right now I'm writing, and going through the outline portion and these word bubbles and word maps I put together. And now I'm going to do the full writing in the month of August. It's just really cool to see where it's come already in a few weeks and where it'll be in a month. And it's just now I can look back, and you and I can talk in September, and I please ask from an accountability and ask how the book's going, because you might ask in September, and most things probably earlier in life, it was oh, I'll get to that, or I'll do it. Yeah. But now it's again, I have to look in my mirror every single day, multiple times a day, and keep saying to myself, why are you here? Right? Why can't it be you? Because at the end of the day, I'm the only one that controls if I write the book or not, or if I do X or not. So now it's on me, right?
I feel like that's a great spot to end this podcast, Brian. I feel like you've been an amazing host. You are the epitome of just getting started. You live it. You live just getting started. You talk to people who just got started all the time. And I feel like as simple as that sounds, it's such great advice. Just do it. Stop overanalyzing. Don't overthink it. Just do it. So on that note, Brian, I'm going to let you give the audience a chance to hear where to find you. Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, man, absolutely. And by the way, you might have earned yourself a spot on the Just Get Started podcast now
Oh
that you started your
boy.
own. Yeah.
Oh boy. I just got
So
started.
yeah. So I might be extending you an invite for a future episode here today. So
Fantastic. All right.
yeah, so I'm on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, at Brian Ondrako, LinkedIn, Brian Ondrako. My website's probably the best spot, brianondrako.com, BrianOndrako. I update a now page. Basically every quarter I rewrite what's going on in my world, a couple snippets and stuff. So it's kind of a fun thing to, if people want to check up on me. I mean, it's kind of my mom basically so she can keep tabs on me. But for the most part, that's probably the best spot is my website.
Perfect.
And that's where the podcast obviously is hosted there. You can go search Just Get Started, podcasts on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Well, I can tell my audience, definitely take a listen to his podcast. They're great. He has great guests. I told him the other day, I want to cherry pick some of them because they're fantastic and they have a lot in common with the way I want to take things and the pursuit of happiness. And I'm looking forward to talking to some of them. So dude, I love the direction that you're on. I love the direction I'm going. It's all positive. It's being happy. And part of being happy is literally just getting out there and just getting started and just doing it. So you can find me at the Pursuit of Happiness on Instagram. Leave comments, please. I would love to hear comments about this episode. And get to Brian. He's an amazing person, good friend.
Thanks, dude.
And absolutely.
This was fun, man.
It was good.
Yeah,
I'll catch you guys next time on the Pursuit of Happiness.